So we were having a discussion based off some rankings that came out on ESPN.com, but I think there's a bigger conversation about who the best duo is for the Packers, whether that's Jordan Love or Romeo Doubs, like the list had, or Jayden Reed or Christian Watson. How do you feel about the future of the Green Bay Packers wide receiving core? Because, I don't know, Jayden Reed having 8 catches in 4 games, like he started off really hot. Now Christian Watson seems to be the featured guy, and how do you figure out who to pay?
Yeah, I don't know. And I wasn't thinking about who's getting paid. I was thinking about, as I asked Matt LaFleur in one of my shortest questions ever, what's going on with Jayden Reed? I mean, I couldn't leave it at just that, of course, because that would be some sort of world record for me. But, the bottom line is that he's not getting the ball enough. And for a guy that is a difference maker for that offense, and certainly has been that last season when he led them in catches and yardage, and for him this season when he at least was, I haven't looked at the stats since the Detroit game, but was leading them in catches and receiving yards. I mean, he needs to get the ball more, and Matt LaFleur agrees. So, the first step in fixing a problem is acknowledging that one exists, and they acknowledge that it exists. In fact, in his answer, Matt LaFleur said that he talked to Jayden Reed today about exactly that. So, and as I said to Jayden when I was talking to him in the back corner of the locker room, I said, look, I know you're not going to, vent to me, and you're not going to not show up for work, but you're not getting the ball very much. What's the deal? And how do you fix that? And, I thought he was very cautious in his answer. He certainly didn't come off as a unhappy camper, but of course he wants the football. So, I think that is part of the quote unquote drawback to not having clear-cut, pecking orders, is that, you talk about all the good things that come from it. And we were having the conversation early in the year about, this is great, it's better than having a number one receiver. I think if you watched Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison yesterday, you realize that, hey, it's not the worst thing in the world to have 2 big-time studs who command most of the targets.
Jason, we were talking a little bit about Jordan Love, and I just look at this team and I think, if they're going to make any noise in the playoffs at all, Jordan Love has to move from being like a kind of an 8 to 12 quarterback like he's been most of the year to a top 5 quarterback. It's a big ask, but that's the only way they're going to make noise in the playoffs. And the question is, well, how do you get there then? To me, you have to get him in rhythm and have him just take what the defense gives him and be selective with his shots. But I want to know from you, because you spend the most time with him, and obviously you watch everything he does. Jordan Love plays at his best when blank.
Ooh, a lot to unpack there, and a very good question, Brad. But let me start with, I think he is playing as a top 5 now, or in the fringe of the top 5.
That's what I think you're saying?
Yeah, if you look at the last 4 games, I think his passer rating's 118. He's 6 touchdowns, 1 pick. Hasn't thrown a pick in 3 games now. I look at that throw that he makes to Watson. I was talking to Watson today about it, and he's just like, yeah, that was ridiculous. And it got tipped too. Like it did get, that defender got just a sliver of a finger on it, and Watson actually deserves credit for making the catch too, because it changed the trajectory a little bit. But I think he is kind of playing like a top 5-ish quarterback right now. The problem, if you want to call it that, is that he's not getting a lot of opportunity, right? I mean, he threw 20 passes against Detroit. And so, but I would also say that factors into the fill in the blank. And that is, he's at his best when he doesn't have to go win the game all by himself and doesn't have to play hero ball. And when Josh Jacobs is being productive. And Matt LaFleur, one of the things I like about Matt is that when he gets talking ball, he can't help but keep talking it. And so, like, I asked him a question today, and he gave a pretty long and involved answer just about, what they're doing well offensively and what he didn't like. And he was talking about that Love throw. But, his bottom line is you only throw 20 passes, you only complete 12. that touches on the Jaden Reed angle too. Of the it's hard to get a lot of guys the ball if you only complete 12 passes in a game. But I think Jordan Love is at his best when Josh Jacobs is shouldering a good portion of the burden, and he's not having to take tons of risks. And I think if you look in the sample size, despite the limited opportunities over the last 4 games, I think that's the kind of play that is good enough, if all the other pieces are firing, for them to be a really good football team.
Jason Wilde joining us here on Kyle Bruston Ortman across ESPN Wisconsin.
Jason, I had multiple weeks to watch other football teams outside the Green Bay Packers due to Packers playing on Thursday night. And I've been able to kind of see what the NFL has to offer. And after yesterday's slate of games, do you still think the Packers are a legit threat in the NFC?
I do, but I think that now look, if you look at Minnesota's schedule and the Packers' schedule, it's virtually identical, right?
Eerily similar.
I mean, let's see. The Packers played the Dolphins instead of the Jets, and they played the Eagles instead of the Giants, right? So other than that, it's almost the exact same schedule. And they're 2 back of the Vikings with 4 to play, and they're 3 back of the Lions with 4 to play. I would say that, in my opinion, because I don't think the Vikings have gotten what they deserve in terms of respect or belief. And I'm not saying they're going to go win the Super Bowl. I'm definitely not saying that. But they are better and more of a threat than they get credit for. And I'm super interested to see what the Packers do on December 29th, because I get the sense, including my extremely talented, smart, handsome Packers Hall of Fame colleague, take the Vikings lightly. And I'm not saying that I'm rooting for the Vikings to beat the Packers by any means, but I do think that maybe my guy and many Packers fans are kind of like, nah, I'm not impressed by these guys.
Even after
maybe
yesterday?
They're right. Yeah, I think so, Kyle. We got a lot in the YouTube comments this morning and a couple of tweets of Atlanta's not very good. Well, okay.
5 touchdown passes, and those 2 guys look nasty.
They look great, right? And especially when you put it in the context of if Jair Alexander's not out there, and who knows? I mean, we know that they can't count on him. Maybe he's back. Maybe he's back this week. Maybe he's back for the Saints. Maybe he's back to face off against Justin Jefferson. Whatever the case may be, if he's not out there, I don't feel great about their ability to stop anybody's wide receiver group, right? They don't generate a lot of pass rush. And Eric Stokes, as Tim Patrick can tell you, and I'm not deriding Tim Patrick, he's been a decent player in this league, but he is clearly Detroit's number 3 receiver, and he ate their lunch on Thursday, right? So I do think that they're a legitimate threat, but I personally believe that the Packers have a lot to prove in the last 4 games. And for me to put them into the next echelon, they have to beat the Vikings. Quite frankly, they need to beat Seattle, in my mind. I was talking to Elton Jenkins, and he said, look, we're aiming to sweep the last 4 games. If you do, and you're sitting there then at 13-4, and you're still a wild card, then I will have a different opinion than I have right now, which is I don't really have many signature wins on your schedule that I look at and go, oh, this proved to me how good they are. And so I want to see more before I think Detroit and Philly are a notch above in the NFC. Then the Vikings are a tiny bit below them. And then I think down on the next level are the Packers. And the rest of these teams that are leading their divisions, the Commanders, who are the 3rd wild card right now, they're all, in my opinion, below the Packers. So I think it's a big 4 with 2, then 1, then 1. And I think the Packers are the 4th in that group with an opportunity to prove it differently.
Let them know, Jason. Let them know. They were talking crazy earlier.
But wait a minute, that's not literally he's super proud of. They're the 4th team in the NFC. That's a good team.
You guys were saying the Commanders and the Seahawks and the Rams are all in the same level as the Green Bay Packers. I said no, they're below the Packers.
Mixed bag.
See,
well, I will say this, and I don't know what you guys were talking about. I was in the locker room, and then I was picking up the girls from school. But the Rams are a really interesting. After seeing yesterday, and obviously 44-42 is an extremely entertaining game. But like they're obviously right. They're a completely different team than the one the Packers played. right? I mean, they have Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp healthy. I mean, the old saying, Brad knows this, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. I think the Packers are probably pretty happy that they're not playing at L.A. Last weekend instead of when they played them when they didn't have either one of those two.
For sure, and that defense leads the league in pressures, and then I guess, you take the break when you get it, and Derek Carr looks like he might, be out for that Monday Night Football game, and you take your breaks when you get them, but ultimately you still need to beat some quality teams before we can, Kyle, start putting them higher up to make you feel happier.